Bonjour everyone and welcome back to the Waves of Your Soul. Today we're gonna be doing my monthly favorite for January/December because we know what I'm like. I'm always late and I didn't get around to doing my favorites for December last year. I don't even know if I did November. I mean, at this point we're just starting from scratch, so this is gonna be recent faves, tarot decks, oracle decks, books, TV shows, video games, all the stuff that's been bringing me joy in the last few weeks, last couple of months. And so normally I always film those videos face front. Normally you see my little face here. But truth be told, right now I feel like shit. My chronic pain is off the chart. I'm dealing with flare-ups. I honestly didn't have it in me to put on some makeup, make an effort, because right now I just feel and look like the Crypt Keeper. So please forgive me. I know it can be a bit boring sometimes to see just hands, and I hope you can forgive me for not doing a face fronting favorites this month, but it really was a case of either I'm filming a video and this is what we get, or there'll be no videos at all, and that would be a shame. So especially because I'm gonna be going away for a little bit of this month, which I'll talk about in Life Joys. If it's your first time here, first I want to say a huge welcome. Thank you so much for being here. In my monthly favorites I talk about books, decks, video games, TV shows, podcasts, whatever I've been enjoying lately. I put timestamps for each of the categories, so if you're just here for decks, you're welcome to move to that. If you want to watch everything, thank you so much for being here. You can find in the description box all the stuff I'm going to be talking about. You will also find other videos of mine you might want to check out, like I've got a whole monthly favorite playlist. So without further ado, let's get into this December/January monthly favorite video. Okay, let's start with Life Joys. The first thing I want to say is a huge thank you, because in December we passed the threshold of 4,000 subscribers, which is insane. Like, how many people is that? Picture it in my head. 4,000 people standing side by side. That is a very long queue. So first off, I want to say a huge thank you for that threshold. It's incredible, I can't believe it. Of course, thank you for everyone who followed along for Vlogmas, because that was a huge project I gave myself and I was super excited to show up with you that way. And so you might have noticed that in January I was a little bit more quiet after doing all Vlogmas and stuff, and that's purely because, like I said, I've just been like dealing with lots of flare-ups and injuries and shit, you know, spoon is life. So I've just been taking extra care and extra time to give my body rest, to give my body what it needs. And I will tell you that the month of January/beginning of February is probably going to be a little bit more quiet on the channel, purely because I am actually going away at the end of January, and I am so excited but also so nervous. So I don't want to speak too much because I'm a bit superstitious sometimes, and until like things actually happen, I don't believe them, especially if it's something that I've been hoping and wishing for years, which is the case with this particular adventure/journey. So I'm gonna be going away at the end of the month. I don't know what's gonna happen, because obviously my health is still gonna be an issue, but the tickets are booked and I should be traveling very soon. I will tell you everything when I'm back, and of course if you follow me on Instagram you will be able to follow along. I'll probably share stories, but it's definitely a huge challenge I'm giving myself. It's also something that I've been working towards for years, that I really just need to get done. It needs to happen at this point, and so videos might be a little bit more quiet, but once I'm back I'll have tons to tell you and tons to share with you. So it's just a little pause in order to come back even stronger. I also want to say a huge thank you for letting me do this video not face fronting. Thank you for allowing me to work with chronic pain, chronic health. Thank you for like allowing me to navigate that and doing the best I can and still showing up and still being kind. It means the world. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate it, especially because today's video is not necessarily what I had in mind, but hopefully it will still be enjoyable to listen to. We can have a little podcast moment, and of course I'll be sharing lots of decks at the end of the video. So let's talk about TV. There's like a couple of things that I've been obsessed with for the months of December and January, and I'll try and put pictures here of it so that at least you've got some visual. And the first thing that I've literally finished from season 1 to season 5 was the Expanse on Amazon Prime. And The Expanse had been on my list of stuff to watch for years. And oh my god, I'm so glad I finally did because I binged it in weeks. So The Expanse is for all of my sci-fi lovers. It is based around this alternate future where humans have managed to settle down on Mars and other like nearby stars and belts. So we have people living on Mars, and Mars has become this super like war-focused society where every citizen is just training for war and stuff like that, super efficient. Earth, on the other side, is ruled by the United Nations, but the majority of people are poor. They can no longer afford any kind of like basic living rights, and there's not enough jobs for the amount of people on Earth, so Earth is actually not looking so good, though it's the only planet where people can breathe the air freely. And finally, you have what people call belters, which is a third part of the population, people who live on the belts, so on like the other star systems, the Orion belts and stuff like that, where people have grown up away from planets, but in places where there is no gravity, forcing them to develop slighter, weaker bones structure, which makes it then very hard for them to then potentially ever be able to come back to Earth. And so there is this like tension between the humans having developed into different factions, different almost races. They're still humans, but technically even their bone structure have slightly changed depending on where they've lived and where their all the generations have developed. And so the story follows a crew of different pilots and different like space people are navigating those like political aspects of what space has become. We're navigating with all the difference between humans and Martians and belters. And if you are into sci-fi even remotely, then this is gonna be awesome for you, because obviously it happens in space. The special effects are super good, but the story in particular and the characters are so well written, and I literally binged it in the matter of weeks. And the great thing about this is that the whole series is finished, so when you finish the last episode you actually feel like you're getting a complete story, which I love, because I hate getting now invested in series and then I get to season 4 and I found out they cancelled it and I'm never gonna get the end. There is nothing more frustrating than that to me, especially for my Aries ass, which is extremely impatient sometimes. I hate not knowing the end of a story, so to be able to have the full on story here, to get an ending that feels satisfying, is just pure bliss. So honestly, if you can give it a shot, I would totally recommend The Expanse on Prime. That's the first thing I enjoyed in the last couple of months. The second thing I've been loving is, obviously, if you watched any of my recent monthly favorites, you won't be surprised. New series from Dimension 20. In particular, I caught up Fantasy High Season 2, and now we're just starting Fantasy High Season 3 as the time of me watching. End of January, the first episode has been out, and I am so excited. So if you don't know Dimension 20, the show you can find both on YouTube and on Dropout, which is a paid subscription service kind of like Netflix, and it is a show where improv actors play Dungeons and Dragons, play D&D, and every campaign has different themes. But one I really been enjoying in the last couple of months has been Fantasy High, which is actually the very first show that Dimension 20 did, and there's 3 seasons out. And you can find the first one on YouTube. They've pulled out, I think it may be the second season. At least the first one and maybe even the second one is on YouTube for free. But for Fantasy High, the D&D campaign is based around this magical world where teenagers are going to an adventuring academy. So it's this kind of school made for heroes, and where they can learn how to fight, they can learn how to save the world. Campaign follows 5 different heroes, 5 different adventurers who are all going to this school and are all tasked with a specific quest to save the world. What I really enjoy about Dimension 20 is that it's super fun. It's very comedy centric. This is a good watch. The improv actors are amazing. There's a great like symbiosis between them. Can't tell you the amount of time I just burst out laughing. But what I also really enjoy is that it can go very deep, and there's definitely some emotional moments. I've definitely cried a few tears watching this, which I never thought would ever happen to me, like crying while watching someone play D&D. What? Yes, I cried. Okay, I cried big tears. The actors are just so amazing. The DM, Brennan Lee Mulligan, so talented at telling the story. It just reminds me to the times when we were just kids and people were telling us stories constantly when we were little. It's something that we've kind of lost as being as growing up and as being adults, that by watching shows like Dimension 20, I feel like I can reconnect with this particular idea of letting someone tell me a story, letting me being transported into another world, letting someone take me to a place of their imagination just feels so inspiring. So I've honestly been loving watching Dimension 20. Pumped for the third season of Fantasy High. I highly encourage you to watch the first season just to get an idea. It's chaotic, it's fun, it's just a good time. Any D20 fans out there, please let me know in the comments. We need to discuss. I want to know your favorite characters, your favorite seasons. I want to find out what you think is gonna happen in the third season of Fantasy High. Tell me everything. Let's move on to video games. Remember, I played a couple of games which were really great. I wanted to give them a little shout out because I think a lot of you will enjoy them. I love talking about video games on my channel, especially like cozy type of the game, because I know there's a lot of us cozy gamers out there who also enjoy tarot. It's like this strange Venn diagram of like cozy gaming and tarot, and right in the middle is where I land, and I know that there's a lot of you landing right in the middle too. So a couple of games I wanted to shout out. The first one is called Jenny Leclue. Jenny Leclue is a point and click game. It's an adventure game that's focusing on exploration, on story and mysteries, and you are following the story of Jenny Leclue, who is a wannabe detective. Her mother is a criminology teacher, and so Jenny has always been in the world of like solving crimes and figuring out what happens, and she's just a super clever and smart girl. And obviously something happens in the town that is going to require her to put all of her detective skills to good use. This is definitely an adventure game, it's an exploration game, it's a story game. It's very cozy, but the storyline is amazing. At the beginning of December, I was kind of like having a delayed Halloween vibe, and this was perfect to get into spooky times. The voice acting is so great. Every single character is voice acted. It really brings another layer to the story, and the whole game in itself was just so enjoyable. I'm gonna hopefully leave some images right now that you can watch. I can't recommend to you enough how engaging this game is. It's got a great story, it's got great voice acting, it's fun but also can be very deep at times and touches on some deeper subjects such as grief and anger and all of those things that we can face as being young children. Honestly, this is one of my favorite games I've played recently, and that says a lot. There's actually a second game in the works, and I'm so pumped because the way it ends is on a massive cliffhanger, and like I said, me and cliffhangers don't really get along, so I need to find out what happens next, and hopefully the new game is gonna come out very soon, and I'm super pumped. So if you've played Jenny Leclue, let me know in the comments, we can talk. Such a great game. I really recommend it to you, especially if you can pick it up on a Nintendo sale. I didn't pay that much for it, and it was worth every penny. I will say it's one of those shorter games, maybe a few hours. Experience you get from it is definitely something that's gonna stay with you, and something that I look back to very fondly. I really recommend it to you if you're into cozy game, adventure, puzzle, mystery, and all of that. So the second game I really have been enjoying in the last couple of months is called Grow, Song of the Evertree. If I didn't mention, all the games I'm mentioning right now, I play them on the Nintendo Switch Lite because that's the only console I have, but I believe Jenny Leclue might be available on PC. I think Grow is available on Switch, Xbox and PlayStation if I'm not mistaken. And so as the name suggests, in Grow, Song of the Evertree, you can create your own world and build them up, restore the balance in a world that has been touched by darkness and evil. So you play this little alchemist and you can decide what you look like. It's one of those RPGs where you create your own character, you play as an alchemist, and your task is restoring balance and life into the world by creating different seeds that you can then plant that will turn into worlds, and you nurture those worlds. So we have some farming elements, we have some collecting elements, we have some like fishing and catching bugs and all the things I love in those like life sim vibes, but touched with an absolutely magical and whimsical world. You restore animals, and then obviously you also create towns. All of those of you who like managing towns and welcoming people and building houses and then giving them jobs, but making sure that everything is harmonious, that we take into consideration the nature and the people. it's all of those elements of a life simulation game, of a farming simulation game, but steeped massively into magic. The animals are super cute, super whimsical, and this has been the perfect game to pick up and play for like 15 minutes and put down. Even though there's a whole story about it, it's also about management of your towns, your worlds, so you don't have to commit to playing for too long to it if you don't want to. And this has been the perfect dupe for me to Fae Farm, because all of my friends have been playing Fae Farm, which is another one of those farming simulation, life simulation, full of fairies, except the price tag for Fae Farm is super steep. It's giving, I think it's around £60, which is the price for Zelda games. I don't mind paying that much for Zelda because I love Zelda, and I know I'm gonna get hours and hours, but for Fae Farm, I feel like that was a little bit much. For Grow, Song of the Evertree, the price is like, I think I paid £25 for it, and it's brilliant. I already had played the first game from these creators, which was called Yonder, and it was so great. It was a beautiful RPG, and with Grow, I'm not disappointed at all. It's been a magical world. The music is so beautiful. So if you're looking for any kind of game where you can create your own towns, restore your worlds, like I was saying, fishing, collecting, catching bugs, taking care of animals, but you want something that's very magical, that feels very whimsical, then this is gonna be the perfect game for you. Let's move on to decks / divination tools, which is obviously the category I'm most excited to share, and it's a category I know most of you want to see. I've got a tons of oracle decks and tarot decks to share with you that I've been enjoying in the last couple of months, so strap in. This is gonna be a very long category. Let's start with what I want to call like a divination tool / witchy tool. Something I've been loving in the recent months that I've been using consistently is this particular box set. It's called Les 66 Talismans, so the 66 talismans. It's from an indie French creator. They have some tarot decks and oracle decks out there, but they also have they also sell crystals and little like divination stuff like this. So in this like 66 talismans, as the name you would suggest, you can guess it, it's gonna be a talisman kind of box set that you can use either for divination or for magic, like if you want to put them on your altar and work with them to call in energy, repel energy, and all of that stuff. So it comes with a little guidebook that looks like this. I love those particular covers. They look like books that my grandpa used to have back in the day. All the books look like this, so it feels very nostalgic to me. And this is a French creation, so all the guidebook is gonna be in French, obviously. And for each of the talisman, you will get the name of it, you will get a little bit of a type up about what this talisman means, and then you will get two different parts. The first one is if you use this as a talisman, so as like a token of protection to carry in your wallet, to put on your bedside table, to put in your pocket, to work with as like a magical talisman. Or the second meaning is if you use it more as a charm for divination. And so there's two different ways you can use them. The first one being like for magical purposes, where you decide either consciously or not to pick a talisman in order to like attract the energy, work with its particular energy. So here, for example, I put one at random. This is Lucet in Tenebris. It lights in the dark. So this one, I'm guessing, would be a great one if you're going through a difficult time, to bring some light into your life. Maybe you carry it in your wallet, maybe you put it in your altar, maybe you leave it on your bedside table, and you work with this particular talisman in order to bring some light to your life if you're going through a dark time. If you're doing shadow work, you might want to leave this talisman nearby to bring in some of that light, etc. So that is if I wanted to use it as a talisman, and I've been really enjoying working with them that way. It's also great for divination. If I had a question, for example, and I wanted to get the energies for the week ahead, for example, I could just mix them up, pull a charm, and then whichever charm I pull, I would not think about it as a talisman, but more as a charm, divination, magic, and think about, okay, what is the guidance message it's giving me? So here we have 2 hearts for next week. Beautiful. And it says ut duo unum component, which is in Latin. In French it says so you can be 1 out of 2. So I think it's about union, it's about joining forces, it's about two people becoming one, connection, union, and all of that. Beautiful. So if I had asked the energies for next week, from this I'm guessing it would be around relationships. There's gonna be some strong focus around communicating with people, around nurturing loving relationships and all of that. You can use it both as a magical witchy tool or as a charm, and I've been just really enjoying them. Charms or talismans are cardboard, but they are engravings from a traditional old book. We look at the guidebook, I forgot the name of it. They've reused all the different symbolism and they've assigned different meanings to them. And then in the guidebook, like I said, you have explanation on how to use them as talismans or how to use them for divination. And honestly, it's just such a great tool. It's something different for me than cards. I've been enjoying working with them both as talisman and as charms. I've even used them in a couple of my pick a card readings, and you guys seem to have really enjoyed them. As the name suggests, the 66 talismans, there are 66 of them. The book that this is originally from, or the books that the engravings are from, is from Daniel de la Feuille in 1695. And what I love about this is that they've put all the talisman in family, so that if you want to work with certain stuff, you just have to go to the table of content and it will suggest to you, depending on your problem, what talisman you might want to work with. So for personal life, we have emotions and feelings, and then on subcategory you have anything around giving yourself confidence. Then you could work with the talisman 3, 25, 33, 58, for example. If you want to enjoy the present moment, then it would be number 5. If you want to feel courageous and more tenacity, then it would be those ones. And you have all the different kind of context or situations that you might be wanting to use the talismans for. So we have personal development, sentimental life, and in sentimental life it's whether you're looking for love, whether you are in a couple, always suggesting for different situations which talisman you might like to work with, which I found really helpful because they're really trying to make sure that you can work with this particular tool the way that feels the best for you, but also as charms, just to literally pull a charm and get some divination guidance. They work so well. So that's the first thing I've been really enjoying. Something that has just been taking me to another world that I've been loving using the guidebook, that's just been such a beautiful surprise. It is Le Tarot Arthurien by Claire Duval and Anna Tourian. This is a French mass market deck. Comes in a much larger box, but I've put the box away. The massive guidebook, which is so juicy, so full of information, a joy to engage with. So for most of December and January, I have been using this particular deck. I've actually put it back in order literally yesterday because I want to do a review for this. Really hope that I can make the review before going. If my health will allow it, I will film it for you guys, because there's been quite a few of you who asked and I really wanted to do it anyway, because it's really a great deck. And I know there's so many of us out there who love the Arthurian legends, who enjoy this particular world of Merlin and Avalon, and this is a particularly beautiful interpretation of this world. The images from Anna Tourian are really magical, and the words from Claire in the guidebooks are just so powerful. Like, you can tell that Claire is absolutely a lover of Merlin and of the Arthurian legends. You can tell she's been researching and studying these subjects for years, and those are guide. And so reading with this deck, using this deck the last couple of months, reading with the guidebook, it's just been really a joy. And like I said, I want to do a review, so if it doesn't happen before I go away, it will definitely happen when I'm back. But this has been a huge favorite. I've been using it pretty much every night, pulling a couple of cards and reading from the guidebook. So for daily draws, it's been fantastic as like ways to reflect and ways to enjoy the guidebook and stuff. But I've also been using it for bigger spreads, using this deck quite a lot in December, especially when I was going through some really complicated day-to-day stuff. I was faced with just a complicated situation, like day-to-day paperwork, you know, the kind of stuff that makes you feel exactly like that. And this deck has given me the best advice to get through it, and all the readings I did with this were just so clear and just helped me get through this particular difficult time in such a beautiful way. So this is a great reader, both for like shorter spreads and larger spreads. I even did a reading for my friend with this in December and she loved it, so I'm definitely gonna be doing a full-on review. I want to translate to you some of the guidebook. I want to tell you all the characters and stuff, because because I've been working with this deck consistently for 2 months, so I feel like I definitely have a good grasp on it now. I just don't know if I'll be able to make the review before I leave or not, but just know it's coming. Oracle deck I loved using with this was the Star Dragons Oracle by Paolo Barbieri. This is a low Scarabeo deck, so the one thing I don't like about it, let's start with what I don't like about it. That is the fact that there's 33 cards. I'm a greedy bitch, we know that by now, and 33 cards doesn't feel remotely enough for an Oracle deck. That being said, I absolutely love dragons. I mean, they are one of my favorite magical creatures, and I love this artist work. I really want the fairy one actually. If you guys have it, let me know in the comments if you are enjoying it. I know there's a unicorn one, there's a dragon one, and there's a fairy one. I really want the fairy one because, like I said, I think this artwork is just gorgeous. It felt so great to work with Le Tarot Arthurien because Arthurian legends, you know, being full of dragons, it just made sense. Even though those dragons feel a little bit more high fantasy and less medieval, the vibe still felt correct somehow, and so I really enjoyed them two together. I really enjoy this Oracle deck anyway. That there's very few cards aside, it's a really well-rounded Oracle deck. The messages are really interesting, the guidebook is good, even though the messages are not long, they're profound and well written. For every single card you will have 2 messages, because you will see on every single card there's 2 beings. There's usually a dragon and a being, a fae, and that being represents a constellation, which is why it's called a Star Dragon Oracle. So in the guidebook you will always have 2 different messages. You will have a message from the dragon, and then you will have a message from that particular constellation. And it's a very well written guidebook. The messages are profound and deep, even though they're short. It's a very empowering and wise energy. It's giving very much like Hierophant meets the magician. And there's a warrior type energy to this deck as well. It's a little bit Mars-like in its energy. So I really enjoy this deck anyway, but paired with the Arthurian Tarot, it was a really great guidebook. You will have 2 different messages. You have the wisdom of the Herald, so as if the being like the constellation speaks to you. You have the wisdom from the dragon, and then you have the Star Dragon Invocation, which is like a mix of those 2 together, which is like almost like if I combine the 2 together, the essence of the wisdom of the card, how it speaks to you. And of course, for every single card it also tells you the name of the constellation and the name of the star, which is really interesting because I suck at astrology, especially stars. Like constellation and stuff is something I'm really bad at. I really enjoy this one. I've had this one for years and it still delivers. Let's move on to another tarot deck I've been loving using in the month of December. In December, honestly, if I wasn't using Le Tarot Arthurien, I was using this one. I was in the middle of Vlogmas. I wasn't in the mood necessarily to like get to know a ton of different new decks. I kind of wanted to narrow down to 2 that felt like they could be good support for any questions I was going through, any questions I had, any difficulties, whatever. I just used those 2 and they felt like really great friends. The deck I've been loving in the last couple of months is also the Dreams Within Dreams Tarot by Jade Trin. So I think the creator goes as Jane Intentions. I can't remember. I leave the link to everything down below. If you're curious about any deck, just check the description box. But this is indie. It comes with an additional couple of oracle cards. We have Deja Vu, we have the Nightmare card. It's cute, but as I've said on my channel before, I'm not really one to use extra cards in a deck really. I've come to realize I like my tarot structure just as is, and I kind of tend to keep the oracle cards on the side. It comes with a little guidebook, a larger message for majors than for minors. For minors it's just a couple of sentences, but we have some keywords and some reverse keywords as well. Honestly, I didn't pay too much attention to the guidebook because this deck feels super intuitive, and it's one of those that is just pure magic. Again, the reason why I fell in love with this particular one is the artwork, and I originally had seen this particular deck on Chanel's channel, and I think Chanel's just changed the name to her channel and I forgot what it is. She used to go by Spirited Stardust, but I think she changed it. So I'll leave the link to her new channel down below. I'm so sorry it's escaping me right now, but I'll definitely tag her down below. Make sure to check her out. This deck on her channel a few months ago, and then I received it towards the end of the year, and the only reason this hasn't made it to my top decks of the year is because I literally received it like beginning of December. It didn't feel fair to include this in my yearly favorite of 2023 because I at the time hadn't really been able to work with it. However, since I've received it early December, I use this non-stop in December, non-stop in January. I'm still using it now and I'm obsessed. So this is definitely gonna make an appearance in my 2024 ranking. I can tell you already, this is gonna be in the top 10 because I am obsessed with this deck so much. It's fantasy-like, it is definitely like otherworldly, it's whimsical, which is, if you've watched my channel, you know I love that shit anyway. Take me to another world, show me some magic, and I'm here. A unique deck in the sense that I believe there's different artists who worked on this. I don't think it's like a different artist per card. I think it's only like 4 or 5 people who worked on this. But you'll see certain cards have different style. Like as you can see, for example, on the left and the right, very different. Again, left and right, very different. However, it feels coherent and cohesive because of the fact that it is set in this like otherworldly magical world, and for that particular reason it just works. And normally I am definitely not someone who enjoys collaborative decks, with the exception of the Vox Arcana, because I don't like incoherence. It just feels like a little bit too messy for me and it bothers me in spreads. But here, even though I can sometimes notice the different art style, it still feels very coherent. It feels like it has the same intention and it's just so beautiful. Look at this Four of Cups. So cute. Joy. I mean, this is my favorite card, the star card. Are we surprised? Not really. You know I love me some whale. It's a really great reader. It's cute. I've used it for anything you can think of. I've used it for months ahead reading, week ahead reading, spiritual reading, day-to-day reading, relation readings. Like I've read with this for others. I've done pretty much everything. It's turning into a workhorse at this point, and it works. It really does. For me, at least, it reads really well. I love this fool. It's so cute. I just love that this takes me to someplace ace, that it lets me use my imagination, that it's whimsical and magical. Sometimes I just need that, really. Something that's gonna excite my imaginative side. I'm a big Page of Wands at heart, so something like this really speaks to me. Eyes are gold edge, but they're like in that antique kind of matte gold, which feels nice because it's not the kind of gold that will chip. And you had two options when I bought this. You could get the backs either in silver or in gold. So I've got the one in gold, and so the sides are also gold, but I think you can also get it in silver if I'm not mistaken. If this is still in print, I bought this on Etsy. If it's still in print, I'll leave it in the description box below, of course. Okay, so Tarot Arthurian and Dreams Within Dreams have been consistent use for December and January, but in the last couple of weeks, so since like early January, I've also been using another couple of tarot decks, and those are definitely the tarot decks that I'll continue to use for the rest of Jan until I'm going away. So they are more recent additions, but they are definitely two that I've been loving using more recently. And so the first one is the Moon Baby Tarot. Oh my goodness, this is such a joy. It's by Brent Palazzo. This is the 2022 second edition. I got this for Christmas. It was a Christmas gift and I have been so enjoying it in the last couple of weeks. It's just been such a joy. RWS clone, it's actually a revisit of the Hoi Polloi, and it's an indie deck. So again, I'll leave the link to the description down below. I had been lusting after this deck since it came out first in 2020, and I'm so excited to finally have this in my hands. The RWS is my preferred system. It's the system I've learned on, and even though I'm now much more comfortable with Marseille as well, I still prefer the RWS. It's like, it just feels very comfy to me. It feels like that old cozy pair of sweatpants I can put on shitty days that just make me feel good, that I don't have to think about. Like I said in a previous video, that for me the RWS feels like period pants, and I stand by that. It just feels comfortable and cozy, and like I can use it and not have to think about it. So the Moon Baby Tarot has been honestly the perfect one to use recently, because I've been going through a lot of flare-ups. I've been going through just a rough last couple of weeks in terms of health-wise. I think obviously the end of the year was a bit tricky, stuff happening behind the scenes, and I also was doing Vlogmas, so I kind of like exhausted myself a little bit, and now my body is kind of paying the price for it. And so whilst I'm in a process of regenerating my energy, of taking care of myself, and of prepping my body for the trip ahead, I've been loving using this because it feels so easy. I don't have to think about what I'm trying to get. I can use this deck for anything and everything, and it just flows. Like, that's the beauty of the RWS. I don't need to leave the cards for 2 hours to figure out what it's trying to tell me. I don't need to read the guidebook to find out why the artist depicted this way. No, I just pull it out, ask my question, move on with my day. Perfect, thank you, bye. It just feels like a well-loved friend. And even though this deck is new, I feel like I know it by heart already because it's a rendition of a deck I know so well. So I'm actually really been enjoying this particular interpretation of the RWS because I love the colors. It's like 70s inspired, obviously. The Hoi Polloi was a deck that came out in the 70s, and this is a reinterpretation / reprinting of that deck. So the colors are very 70s. It's like mint and oranges and pinks. Beautiful. I love the colors of the edging. There's something super nostalgic and groovy about this deck that I love, but it's also very joyful, and I'm super tempted to bring it on my travel. The only reason I'm hesitating is that this is an indie deck, and I would be gutted if I lost it or damaged it, especially because it was a Christmas present. So I'm actually thinking I should bring a mass market deck on my travel, because at least even if it gets like damaged, or if I lose a card, or if I lost it or whatever, then it would be easily replaceable. But if that was not a concern, then this would be the deck I would bring, because right now it feels like the easiest deck to use. Thinking about what tarot deck to bring when you're going away is definitely a struggle. I mean, first world problem for sure, definitely. I don't want to sound like woe is me. It's absolutely not a real problem, but it's a tarot reader problem, because you're like, okay, what kind of deck do I want to bring out on a trip? One, it has to be, like I was saying, easily replaceable, just in case, because you never know what happens. Two, it has to be a deck I can read for myself and others, because I know I'm going to be reading a lot for others on this trip, so I need something that's going to be good for both. Just lots of parameters that are debating, and that I'm considering and debating about, thinking about what deck I'll take on this trip. Right now, my choice has been the Pulp Tarot, because it's not a very expensive deck. I could easily replace it. It's a deck I feel comfortable reading with for myself and for others. Like, it's a deck that excites me, that I think a lot of people would enjoy, that I also would enjoy if I read for myself. But I'm also considering taking my Lightseers, because my Lightseers is like an old friend, it's just the friend that's been there for ages for me, that just feels like, again, period pens kind of vibes. So I don't know, I guess I'll let you guys know. Probably you'll see in my stories which deck I ended up taking. Let's move on to the other tarot deck I've been using in the last couple of weeks, so like late January. This is the Tarot du Voyage Lumineux by Jessica Haller. It's a French mass market deck. This used to exist in English, it's now out of print, but you can find it in French, still mass market. So if you like it, I don't want to create FOMO or anything, but I'm just telling you, I couldn't find it in English anymore. I don't know how long the French version will be in print for, so it might be one that you want to pick up sooner rather than later. That would be a shame if they also got rid of the French version. Comes with a beautiful guidebook, full color. There's like 2 pages for each of the card, majors and minors. The way it's written is really empowering. It's really beautiful. It's sweet. I've been enjoying reading this in the month of January, and it was a sweet read. This is, again, it was a Christmas gift, so I've been using it in January. It's again an RWS inspired deck, so it's not it's definitely not the most crazy, complicated, esoteric, occult deck I own. Absolutely not, but right now it's everything I need, because it feels soft, gentle, kind, and colorful, and just full of joy. This actually, could be a contender for taking away, because it's a deck that just brings a lot of good mood vibes. Like, this is totally good mood, and just like the Moon Baby was, the Moon Baby felt good mood vibes as well. So maybe this is a contender for taking away. Although, if it is going to be out of print, and I do end up damaging it, I would be gutted, especially because this was a Christmas gift. So I don't know, maybe this is not the right choice. Maybe I should take something that's more easily replaceable. I don't know why I have in my head that my decks will be damaged, but I just never had good luck when I was traveling before I got sick. I haven't traveled since I've gotten sick, but when I used to be able to be physically well enough to travel, I just had the worst luck when I come to traveling. And even though I'd probably take my tarot deck with me, I still don't trust myself. Got this beautiful kind and nurturing energy. If this tarot deck was a major, it would be the Empress, and it's so funny because we just pulled her. This absolutely is the energy of the deck. The Empress, it feels kind, it feels gentle, it feels nurturing, it feels motherly in its energy. It's a doo-doo deck, it's a hug deck. The colors are so bright, it really carries its name well, the Vivid Journey Tarot. I love the colors. I also love the line work. There's something about this artwork that I think is super beautiful and that reminds me of books I was reading when I was younger. It feels just like fairy tale a little bit. It feels a little bit storybook. I love this Four of Cups. This person is so chill that their whole hair is rising up, almost like they're working with the Force Star Wars vibes. They're so chill and like in the moment that they don't even notice the Fourth Cup. And in this Four of Cups, it doesn't feel like we're missing out on anything. It actually feels like we're content. This whole card is giving me contentment vibe, which I often miss in a lot of Four of Cups depictions, so I really enjoy this one. The color chosen for all of the suits really makes sense. For all the wands, we have a lot of reds. For the swords, we have a lot of purple, and so there's also ways you could work with this for chakra work. I think it would be interesting. I don't think it was necessarily meant to, but there's definitely ways that you can incorporate chakra or color work in the deck. Like strengths being so yellow makes me think of solar plexus, which makes a lot of sense to me. This magician card, really beautiful, really powerful. I love the fact that we don't see their face. Actually allows us to project ourselves in it, like it could be any one of us in there, so I love that. Honestly, this has absolutely been a joy. I don't want to put it away. My battery just died, so things might be looking a little bit different, but like I was saying, this has really been a joy. Got it that this is not being printed in English anymore. Even the guidebook is great and it's been a nice, empowering, interesting read. Let's move on to oracle decks. Okay, the first oracle deck I want to mention that I've been loving using in the last couple of months is L'Oracle de l'amour de soi by Janet Chewy. This translates to the Oracle of Self-Love. It's a French mass market deck, and this is a deck I picked up in December in the bookshop that I was so excited to see that they had been releasing this mass market in French. Because a few years ago I almost bought the indie version. So this originally was an indie deck. In English it might still be indie and still be available indie. I don't really know. I will leave the link to the French mass market version below anyway. But I'm so happy that this is available mass market in French because it's such a beautiful deck, and like I said, I had almost bought it indie a few years back. So when I saw this in the bookshop in December, it was a no-brainer. I was like, you're coming home with me, absolutely. I love Janet's artwork. It's again very fantasy, very magical. We've got fairies and mermaids and unicorns. At this point, you know the drill. I guess I was in one of those moods, especially the last couple of months. I've been definitely in the mood to like use stuff that takes me to another world, that helps me use my imagination. I've not really been called to use anything historical or occult really, apart from I guess the moon baby, but even then the colors are super fun. I've not really been engaging with any of my historical decks or anything recently. The mood has just been take me to another planet right now. And so this does this beautifully. And as you can see on every single one of the cards, you have the main key sentence and then you have a little message. So here you have stand back up. No matter how deep you've fallen, you must try again. Nothing is lost as long as we don't give up. Then we have show some grace. Only make choices that your heart can take, even the bad decisions. We will receive grace after we have shown it to others. Beautiful. So this is a very beautiful healing, self-love theme oracle deck. It's one of those that is perfect if you just want to pull like a card at the end of the day, a little message of healing, of guidance. And go into the guidebook to get more, because in the guidebook you will have actually one page per card. So the messages here will be deeper and more fleshed out, but honestly what is on the card is also enough. I've been loving using this also in readings to finish up the reading, so I've used it in quite a few pick a card readings already as like last message from your guides, from your higher self, and it works really well for that. It was honestly spot on. Every time I've used it like this, it just wrapped up the reading and told us exactly what we had just been talking about. It was crazy. So this is a really good reader, very good at distilling the essence of a reading and summarizing it perfectly. And on top of that, I think the artwork is so enchanting. Like, I really appreciate the quality of it. I love this little doggo, it's so cute. I love a corgi. It's very easy to translate. There's nothing too complicated here. It's only a couple of sentences, so you would be fine. And if you are trying to learn French, then this is perfect. So the messages are not too long, so I think this would be a great deck actually to learn French if you were into that particular endeavor right now. If you wanted to learn it, this would be great because you could just try and translate what's here, and then you could move on to the guidebook if you wanted like a longer message, for example. Cards are definitely larger than your stereotypical oracle cards. It's quite a large deck. The paper is matte, feels really good honestly. For a mass market deck, the quality of it feels really nice. The edges are plain, and let's pull a card. We'll pull one card. Anyone watching, let's get a little loving message before I share with you my last deck from our guides. For anyone watching, what do we need to know at this moment in time? Well, there you go. This is what we've just translated. Stand back up. No matter how much you've fallen, you must try again. Nothing is lost as long as we don't give up. It's actually one of my favorite cards of the deck. I think this is beautiful. It's giving like Joan of Arc vibes, which I'm super here for. So maybe some of you needed to hear that. It's funny, it's the one I translated. On to the last deck I want to talk with you today. I've been talking for like 50 minutes, so this is gonna be fun to edit. If you're still here, thank you so much for bearing with me because you are a true star. It's a deck that I originally mentioned in my overlooked deck video, and it's the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. So here's the guidebook. I have the French version. This exists in English. You can find it mass market. And so originally I brought this out in my overlooked decks video that I posted early in the month. If you haven't watched it, I leave it in the cards here. I kind of took a look at my whole tarot collection and thought, okay, what are the decks that I didn't use last year in 2023 that I want to revisit this year to figure out if I'm still enjoying them, or if I can build a better connection with them, or if our time has passed, etc. And the Dreams of Gaia Tarot was on that list because I hadn't been engaging with this particular deck for a couple of years, and it's a deck that I got very early on in my practice that I feel like I never really got to know fully deeply. So I decided in January to pick it back up and to give it a go, and I have thoughts about this deck. In the month of January, I've been giving this deck a chance and I've been reading with it pretty much every day. I've been pulling a card a day in order to kind of like reacquaint myself with the deck. So let's talk about first daily draws. For daily draws, in terms of like pulling a card at night and reading the guidebook, which by the way, the guidebook is huge. Like you get at least 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 or 5 pages for each of the card. It's really in depth. You have keywords, you have different meanings, present, past and future. This is very psychological based. So the guidebook is so great, and I've really enjoyed using this deck in that matter of pulling a couple of cards at night and reading the guidebook. I have tried using this for purely tarot and it just doesn't work for me. So this is where I'm at with this deck. Like using this almost as an oracle, absolutely. Enjoying what the guidebook has to say, absolutely. It gave me some profound readings, and honestly some of the cards are still out on my altar. I'm still working with them. But when it comes to doing like intuitive tarot reading where I don't engage with the guidebook at all, crickets. Honestly, it felt like watching, you know, in those Far West movies when there's like the tumbleweeds rolling. That's how my reading felt like to me. I'm so torn, and the reason I've realized why I struggle so much using this deck as a tarot and not as an oracle is because I found like 7 times out of 10 the artwork doesn't really necessarily go with the meaning of the card. Like here, for example, we have the Ace of Air. Here's a dragon, so why not? Maybe the dragons represents the different aces. I can get on with that. Here we have the Nine of Air, and nothing about this gives me Nine of Swords, honestly. It gives me maybe 8 of Swords, because when I'm looking at this, it almost looks like their hands are bound. So why not 8 of Swords? But 9, I don't see fear or nightmares or facing your fears or anything like that here. But when I read the guidebook, I get it. When I read the guidebook, I get beautiful messages. I understand the choices and everything like that. But if I'm using this and I don't engage with the guidebook, I don't understand at all the match between the artwork and the cards. And yet the artwork is beautiful. It's gorgeous. Like, come on, this is so beautiful. I can't deny. Look at this. So beautiful. Another thing I'm really struggling to use this just as a tarot is that there's a lot of additional tarot cards added to this. There's not just your stereotypical major arcana. We have some additional majors that if I don't use the guidebook, I wouldn't necessarily know how to read them in a tarot sense. So in a bit of a struggle in trying to figure out how to use it, and it's been interesting to re-engage with it with now years later with my knowledge of tarot and realizing, okay, I didn't bond with this at the time as a tarot deck because I didn't know enough about tarot, but because that's just not how I read, and that's okay. We're just not potentially meant to be together in a tarot format. Like, it just doesn't work for me. Of air, I don't see 7 of air at all here. I don't see 7 of swords. So I've come to the conclusion using this deck the recent weeks that this is only for me a deck that will be usable with the guidebook. And that's okay. That's okay, because you know what? I actually really enjoy the guidebook, what the guidebook has to say. And so I don't mind. And that's the way that I've found to enjoy this deck. But I've come to the conclusion that I can't use this on its own. Like, I just wouldn't be able to get good readings with this on its own. It just doesn't work for me. And it's not to say anything bad about the deck or anything, it's just that's not how I roll, and that's okay. I wanted to come back and share it with you because it's been interesting to re-engage with it, and that was the whole point of me doing my overlooked deck videos, was to re-engage with decks and figure out how I want to use them, they fit in my tarot practice or don't. And with this one, I've come to the conclusion that even though it's called the Dreams of Gaia Tarot, I will engage with it as an oracle, and that's fine by me because it's still a very enjoyable experience. It's just not necessarily the experience that I thought I would have with it, but that's okay. So my friends, this is it. These were all of my recent favorites for December and January. I hope you didn't mind this format of not seeing my face. I hope it won't be too much of a problem for you guys. And I want to thank you so much for being here. Again, like I said, I'm gonna be away for a little bit, end of the month, beginning of next month, so videos might be a little bit quieter, but I'll have tons of stuff to share when I'm back. And until then, I hope you are doing good. I'm sending you so much good vibes, and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!